Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. This video is going to be just a whole kind of week of making. So I've got a couple of things on a list that I've got planned for the coming week. We'll see how much I can get done. But I've been meaning to do a video like this for quite a while because I've had a lot of questions about like how much time do I have in a day for all my different crafty endeavors. And I thought this was a nice way to kind of share what I kind of get up to. So today is the 15th of June. It is 1:45, so I'm starting quite late because this morning I was kind of just getting a whole lot of things organized so that I could actually do this, because I would have been like filming bits that would not have been interesting at all. And so I'm kind of at a sort of, not a full clean slate, because if you've ever watched any of my podcast videos, I have a load of projects on my needles. It's under 60 now. It was above 60 earlier this year, but it's still in the 50s. So, and that's just sewing. That's just knitting, not including sewing and spinning and everything. And so, yeah, I kind of just got to a point where I was like, okay, it's going to be really good to start this video. So, quick rundown of what I've got planned for this video, and then we'll see at the end whether I actually managed to do everything. If not, it doesn't matter. It's just I like having goals, I like making lists, and so that's what I've done. So the first thing I want to try and do is finish the Elton pullover. So I'm not going to share everything right now as in like show it off, because it's going to be tricky, and I feel like it's better when I kind of show you where I'm at as I'm working on it. But the Elton pullover is something I've been working on since sort of October time. I think that's when I did the swatch, but I didn't start it until later in the year. Last year, obviously. And that is a sample piece for Jess from Skein in the Stitch. I'm using her yarn. And I've kind of been heavily focused on that project because it's been on my needles for quite a while. So all I have left now is one sleeve. I was in the UK recently and managed to finish one sleeve there. I did most of the body. Well, not most of the body. I had about like, was it like 4 or 5 inches or something done already of the body. And then I finished quite a bit of that in the UK. But I finished the like ribbing and the bind off here. So I only have one sleeve left, and it's not even a full length sleeve. It's like a 3/4 length sleeve. And I've done the first one, so I know exactly what I'm doing. So the second one will be super quick. So that shouldn't take too long. Like, I should be able to do that in a day. If I'm feeling tired or unmotivated, maybe 2 or 3 days. I've got a whole week for this video, so that should be easy. Number 2, I've kind of made a little plan for myself for this year of all the different blankets I've got and which one I'd like to work on each month. So I'm trying to work on a different one each month, roughly. I don't think I actually have 12 blankets on the go. Not yet. And so I think there's a couple that do repeat, which is mainly the Battenberg, because I want to try and get that done. But the blanket that I'm working on for the month of June is From Grandma with Love. And I'd done one entire square quite a while ago. I think it wasn't even last year. I think it was 2022. Either way, doesn't matter. Blankets don't count as whips. They're long-term projects. But I finished the first one relatively quickly, just to kind of test, is this what I want to use? Pattern-wise, because I'm using the 2021, let's say, mystery kind of club from the Fibre Fox. I always went for 5 mini skeins, and so that's what I'm going to turn each mini skein into a square from this blanket. And I'd already finished one, and then had a second one on my needles for months, and I finished that one either beginning of this month or last month. I can't even remember. And I'd really like to try and keep working on that. Like I said, is the blanket I'm trying to focus on this month. So I'd like to try and get at least another square done. So that's the second kind of goal I've got on my list, of starting the third square, and secretly I'm hoping I might be able to finish it. But even if I don't, I'd like to try and at least get, so it's work from the inside out in the round. I'd like to get the increases done, so I only have the lace left to do. The third one is I started the Foxtails socks, which is one of the projects I'm doing for my Make 9 sock edition, which I don't think I've even recorded a video for. It doesn't matter. But I started the first sock, got past the leg, put in the afterthought, well, not the heel yet, but did half the stitches on some scrap yarn, and now I'm on the foot of the first sock, and I'd like to try and finish the first sock. It is color work, occasionally 3 colors in one row, so it is slow, but at the same time it's using the Plumpy base from the Fibre, which is my favorite sock base, so I really enjoy knitting that yarn. So I'm hoping that will kind of help motivate me through. I just always know when I get to a round that has 3 different colors, that's when I kind of go, no, I'll put it down and work on something else. So it's on the list to try and encourage myself to get that done. Then a project that I really want to try and finish this year, it's from the end of 2022. I started the Lucia socks by Sari Nordland, which was a mystery knit along at the time, and I've been struggling to finish those. I still haven't finished the first one. They work toe up, but earlier this year I did manage to at least get past the heel, so I just have the leg to do, and I'm probably not going to make it too long. I don't really get that much wear out of long socks, like in the leg, unless it's ones that are intended to then be folded over, and these aren't. So I'm hoping I can finish that one. It's just that one's a bit tricky right now because you have one chart for the front of the leg and one chart for the back of the leg. So it's a lot of flipping between 2 charts and keeping track of where you are. But I just need to put in the effort and it's fine. So that's all my knitting plans. For sewing, I've got 2. The first one should be super easy. I started making I think it's called the crossback apron from Pearl Soho. It's a free pattern. I started making that in May, maybe beginning of June, either way, recently. And it's for my mum, and I did most of it really quickly because I was fully in the swing of it and enjoying it. And then I went to the UK, and all I had left to do was just to hem it at the bottom. So that's all I have to do. But it's one of those things where, like, you're almost done with a project, and then you don't work on it for a while, and then it gets really hard, at least for me, to kind of get back into the swing of things. So I'm putting it on the list, and it won't take long. It's just, you know, folding up that first bit of the fabric, ironing that, folding up the second bit, ironing that, pinning it, sewing it. And I have to rethread my sewing machine because I've done other things in the meantime. Because of course I have. The other sewing thing is a much bigger project where I have my doubts about whether I'll get it done, but you know, we try to aim high here. And that is, I want to sew the Marlowe sweater. I believe it's called a sweater because that's an American thing. For me, it's a cardigan. And I have fabric for it already. I've got the pattern printed off, stuck together because I did it at home. And I just need to now lay it down on the kitchen table and get my tracing paper out and actually draw around the size that I want to make. So I do want to try and get it done because it's something that I think I'd really enjoy wearing. It's way too warm now, but potentially in the evenings or in the early mornings. So I'd like to get it on sooner rather than later because it's just going to get hotter. So I just don't enjoy the whole tracing process and then cutting that out, cutting the fabric out. I want to sew. I don't want to cut things out. So that's the 2 sewing things. And then the last thing on my list, number 7, is a spinning thing where I've been almost since like the beginning of this year, I've been spinning up, is it 4 or 5 braids of Malabrigo fibre, and I think each one is like 115 grams. So it's a decent amount of fibre to spin up, and I've been doing a 3-ply, getting about a sport to DK weight. Was it DK to worsted, by the way? And what I'm hoping to do is to then knit that up into, what's it called, a traveller shawl, I believe. And it is, technically speaking, part of like Andrew and Mary's whole like you spin the yarn and then you knit a project, but I have no idea if is that running all year? I can't remember. It just inspired me. And I've got a couple of skeins of that already done. And over the next week, I'd like to try and get another skein done. So currently on my wheel, I have started on one of the singles. So that's maybe halfway done, that first single that I need. And then I need to spin 2 more singles, let that rest, ply them together, let that rest, and then wash that. And then that goal would be complete. Like I said, because I've been away in the UK, I haven't been spinning because I was away, and I've really been feeling the itch again to try and get back into it, because I did so much spinning towards the beginning of the year, and then I kind of tried to focus more on my knitting because I felt like I was falling behind. Not that there are any deadlines really. But now that I'm back, I finished one skein like as soon as I arrived back in Austria, and that was just because I had the singles already done and I just quickly plied it up. And so now I'm kind of back at a beginning clean slate for that, and yeah, I need to spin up my 3 singles so I can then ply that. So it's a variety of different goals, though my knitting is all with fingering weight yarn. Of course it is. Happens when it gets warmer especially. But yeah, so it will keep me busy over the next week, and these goals aren't meant in any sort of like way to pressure myself. I think it's just kind of, like I said, I enjoy goals, and it's not going to stop me from doing other things as well. And I'll share that as well if I end up doing extra bits that aren't on the list, which I'm sure I will. And yeah, we'll just see how the week goes. So not sure how much more I'm going to get done today. Like I said, it's already afternoon. I might, if I'm being honest with myself, I don't want to do what I'm about to suggest, but it's probably the right thing to do today, is to trace the Marlowe sweater and cut that out. Just the pattern pieces. I can do the fabric another day. I know once I get started, it's fine. It's just I hate the setup, and everything's so big and takes up so much space. But anyway, yeah, I'll probably do that. But you'll see it anyway. So I hope you're excited. I'm a bit nervous about how it's going to go, and let's get into it. Good morning and welcome to Monday. So I didn't really film much yesterday. I also didn't do all that much yesterday. So I'll cover some of the things I've done, but it is almost 7 o'clock. I know my clock makes it look like it's almost 6 o'clock. It's almost 7 o'clock. I've been up since, I think, like 5:30. I'm desperately trying to go back to sleep because it's just too early for me. Didn't work. So I kind of just eventually admitted defeat. Spent some time in bed on my phone, as you do. And yeah, finally decided, okay, time to get up, time to do something. And I look tired. That's okay. So yesterday, it was just a really low energy day, and I kind of realized that early on, and instead of trying to kind of push myself and force myself to film and pretend that everything's fine when it's not, I was like, let's just leave it. I took 2 or 3 little snippets of what I was working on, but I just didn't do much crafting yesterday. Like I said, I just didn't have the energy, and so I just kind of, let myself have a very relaxed, easy Sunday without any sort of stress or pressure. So the little bit that I did was, I've been working on the sleeve of the Elton pullover. This is the second sleeve. I can't remember how much I did yesterday. I think it was only like 2 stripes, and I'm on the second decrease now, which I'll probably do this morning, just to wake up a bit more before I have breakfast. So this one should definitely be done by the end of this making week, but in some ways it's also like I could have finished this a lot sooner, but I didn't. And then yesterday I actually picked up one of the other projects that I'd mentioned that I haven't shown yet, and that's the foxtail socks. And when I showed the little snippet, it was very bad lighting because it was already quite late in the evening. Considering it's summer, it was very late to be that dark. But so here's the first one that I'm working on, and like I said, I want to try and finish this first one completely. So you couldn't really see it in the video, but it makes it quite handy. I was literally like a row after where I placed this scrap yarn for where the heel's going to go. So I finished a little fox motif and then started on the next one, which is this one up here. So not a lot, but it is color work. Occasionally, like you can see with the eyes and the nose, you have 3 colors in a row. So it's slow going, and it's just a nice project when I do want something a bit slower. So it was actually quite good yesterday for that, because I find color work very relaxing, except when I have to do 3 colors. Then I have to pay a little bit more attention, especially if I have to catch my floats with 1 color or even 2 colors. That makes it even harder. Yeah, and then the only other thing I really did yesterday was I had a spontaneous moment of I want to do all the sewing. That was the only thing that really kept going through my mind yesterday. And I ended up printing off the pattern pieces for the strata top from So Liberated and glued that together, cut it out. And I then also actually used some old bed, duvet covers. You can actually, I still have the fabric here because I haven't cleaned it up. So it's just from IKEA. I think it was used by my parents for a while, and then eventually got phased out of being used. And it's one of the fabrics I often use to make a mock-up of a garment. And I did that, but to be honest, the strata top is literally just 2 pieces, a front piece and a back piece. You do have a neck facing that you cut out on the bias, but I didn't do it for that fabric because it just eats up so much fabric. Unnecessarily so in some ways. And I'm now just trying to figure out, do I like the fit? or do I want to make some changes? Because I added extra length to it, about 7 centimeters is what I went for, just because the pattern's greater for someone who's 5'5" and I'm 5'8". So I was like, yeah, let's add about 3 inches, which is about like 7 centimeters. It's a little more than that. And I was like, that's probably going to be too much, because even though I'm 3 inches taller than what the pattern's graded for, it's not just all in my torso. But the length ended up being quite nice, and I can always play with how I'm going to hem it if I want it to be shorter, but I think it was actually a really nice length. Not that I've hemmed it. I literally just sewed the 2 pieces together on the shoulders and the like side seams just to try it on. So I might finish it off a little bit more today just to get a better idea of the fit. Yeah, still thinking about that, but that was a spontaneous thing that I decided to do. And I also had a huge look through my fabric stash to kind of figure out what fabric do I want to use for a town bag that I mentioned at some point, I believe. And I'm still not sure, because it really should be a thicker material. Now I can use, normally I would use interfacing to make the fabric thicker so it just has a little bit more structure, but the town bag is a single layer bag. There isn't a lining, so you see the interfacing on the inside, and I don't want that. Things will also get caught in it. So yeah, what I really need is some like canvas. I don't really have any canvas in stash, at least not that I found. So now I'm thinking maybe I should buy some fabric, but then I'm like, I have plenty of fabric. Might just have to hold back on sewing that one and sew some other project bags, where I actually also yesterday found the perfect pattern for what I want. I was gonna try and do my own, but I've never really self-drafted a sewing pattern before, unless it's been like something really super simple where it's just like 2 rectangles or a couple of rectangles and things like that. And so I had this idea of what I want the project bag to be, and kind of started doing some sketches and things. But then I was like, it's going to involve a lot of trial and error, which means I'm going to probably end up wasting some fabric, where I was like, oh, I don't really like that. And then I did some Googling and found the perfect pattern. So I'll put the picture up. I cannot remember what it's called. And it is a paid for pattern, where I was kind of like humming and hawing, should I spend the money? I decided I would. I actually used some of the YouTube money that I make through ads and things, so thank you to you all if you're watching. You helped for me to be able to buy that pattern. So I bought that. You can print off the pattern pieces, but I just measured it and have cut everything out. I just need to, other than the interfacing, that's what stopped me yesterday. I was going to start sewing, and then I realized I hadn't cut the interfacing out, and I was like, nope, I'm done. That's too much for me today. So we'll see if I do any more on that today. But I am just using scraps and bits that I have in my stash, because I also have a couple of different like bundles of fabric from different fabric stores and things, where it's literal ends that they couldn't sell. And so they put it all together in a bag, and it's way cheaper than buying the same amount of fabric if it wasn't like a scrap. And I like that for things like project bags and smaller projects like that. And yeah, so it ended up being kind of a lot more than I thought I would do yesterday, considering I was feeling like real low on energy. I also ended up finishing one of my singles yesterday. So now I have 2 singles done for the skein of yarn I want to finish this week. So I only have 1 more singles to do, which I might do today, or start at least, and then let that rest, and then I can apply it later this week, and boom bam, 1 goal met. Yeah. So, like I said, I'm probably just gonna chill here for a little bit, work on the Elton pullover. Probably not gonna do much on it. I'm finding it, I think I've mentioned this in a podcast before. I find the Elton really enjoyable to knit when I'm using the sock yarn. As soon as I end up doing rows of the Suri, it just gets a bit more finicky, and I have to be careful that I actually catch the strand because it's not as easy as with the sock yarn. So I always have 4 rows that I really enjoy, and then I have 4 rounds, and then I have 4 rounds of slower, not so enjoyable knitting. But that is how it is. Anything else to report? I don't think so. If there is, I'll hop back on later. Just going to sit, knit a bit on the sleeve and watch some knitting podcasts. Hello and happy Tuesday, or at least it's Tuesday for me. Late start to filming just because, so it's 4:45 in the afternoon. I haven't done a lot of crafting or making this morning just because in the morning I was kind of focused on cleaning up the kitchen because I was cooking last night and I was too tired to clean that up last night. And then also did some other like tidying and bits around the house. I also ran a couple of errands of things that I had to buy and small grocery shop, things like that. You know, the normal mundane kind of life stuff that you have to do every now and then. And then all I've kind of done, like I then came back from all of that, had lunch, and then it was after lunch that I sat down, watched a couple of podcasts, and I think I did like a little snippet, but it's tiny snippet. But I thought I'd just kind of share where I am with a couple of things. So, Elton pullover, by sitting down in the afternoon and watching, I think I watched 2 knitting podcasts. I managed to finish all my decreases for the sleeve, the second sleeve, and now I just need to knit 4 more stripes. So 2 in the Suri, 2 in the sock yarn, and then I've just got the cuff to do, which isn't, it's not like super long, but it's also not like incredibly short. And then this is done, other than, you know, weaving in ends and blocking the thing, but the knitting's done. So I've slowly, just over the last few days, which you'll have seen, been working on that. The other thing where I'm actually filming like an entire sewing vlog, I can't remember if I've mentioned this, is the Marlowe sweater, and I'm going to include, well, you've already probably seen it, but I will have included a couple of just snippets of me making it, but like I said, there will be a whole project vlog for that, hopefully, if everything goes to plan and it's not atrocious filming. And what I did yesterday is, well, literally everything you see. So I joined the front pieces to the back piece, so the shoulder seam, attached the sleeves, both of them, and then also sewed the sleeves shut and joined the sides as well. So right now, I technically speaking have something that I can like throw on, and I had a little try on of it just to make sure, you can't see anything with this, just to make sure like everything's fitting okay, and I don't want to make any sort of changes now to, you know, taking it in somewhere or something like that. But yeah, happy with that. Though the first step for this was joining the, so for like the neck button band, you have 2 pieces that you sew together to make a longer piece, and that seam then sits at the back and the 2 pieces go towards the front. And I stupidly read that the seam allowance was 5/8 of an inch. It was 3/8 of an inch. And because I'm using my overlocker to sew this, and it didn't really work, like you can turn off the sort of like knife that runs on the overlocker, but it didn't work. I was like, oh, it's fine, it will trim my seam allowances, that's perfect. But now that's I have lost, how much is it, 2/3? Yeah, no, 2/8 of an inch. So it's not like a whole lot, but it's more than it should be. The good thing is the button band, which is the next thing I think I have to do anyway, is shorter than the entire like cardigan, so you do have to like stretch it as you sew it to get it on for a nice fit. So I just have to see if it's going to be okay. Worst case scenario, I might just have to chop like a little itty bit off the length just to accommodate for it, or not even chop it off, just attach the button band, and then when it comes to the waistband, I'll just have to increase the seam allowance for that so that it's a little bit shorter and it all works out. We'll see, but I'm hoping it'll be fine. But yeah, so far I like the fit. It's oversized, it's comfy, it's exactly what I wanted. Big sleeves and everything, and not too long. And I might do a bit more of this today. Technically speaking, I could easily finish it, at least everything except buttons, because I cannot be bothered with buttons today, and I haven't even thought about what buttons to attach. Because all I need to do is waistband, neckband, and cuffs for the sleeves. And then that's done. So I'm always amazed with sewing. First of all, obviously it goes a lot quicker than knitting does. But it's also like with most sewing projects that I do, which have been kind of more like staple, simple pieces or like simple bags, the most time you spend on the project is for cutting out the pattern pieces, both like the paper pattern and then cutting your fabric out. That seems to take the longest. Everything else, the actual sewing, so quick, unless you're doing something fiddlier. But so we'll see whether I feel like doing that today. Today's an incredibly hot day here in Austria, especially where I live. So I'm east of Vienna, and every time there's like, oh, there's bad weather in Austria and Vienna's getting hit and everything, it just skirts past me, and we don't get much rain here. It just gets very hot here. I don't like the heat. I've mentioned it many times. So currently, like on my little balcony that I have, it's 33 degrees, and that's not in the sun. That's just the air around my little like weather station. It's still 25 degrees inside, so it's bearable, but the hair will be going up. It's just, I like to keep it down for videos because sometimes when I put it up, like I force it back so much so it's out of my face, and it just looks like I have no hair and I just look a little bit weird. So hair is down for the videos, but you know, you might see me later with my hair up and me looking even redder in the face and shinier than I am now. So the only other thing I was going to quickly share, because I don't think I did much on the foxtail socks, and then spinning wise, I'm almost done with my third singles. If I do that today, then I could ply them tomorrow. We'll see. But one of the things I did on my little errand run is I stopped in the local fabric shop, because at first I was kind of I've been like with my knitting, I'm trying to use what I have because I have some lovely fabrics, lovely yarn, but there's two things in particular that I want to make where I don't have the right fabric for it. So the first thing is for a Towns bag where I cut out the pattern, and you need canvas for that. Now, I have made a bag with canvas before, like real thick, proper, like canvas for a bag, and my sewing machine barely handled that. That was a sort of like cheaper Singer sewing machine. My actual sewing machine, so that's one I had in York, it is now here, but my actual sewing machine that I've had since I was a teenager is a bit more of a sturdy one, so it can handle a bit more, but I still don't think it's going to be enjoyable to knit. To sew. And so I wanted some canvas that's a little bit thinner, but all the kind of like cotton fabric I have is the kind of fabric where, one, it's quite thin, and two, it has a right side and it has a wrong side very obviously. So either it has a print on the front or something like that. And yeah, so like I said, I wanted some canvas that was a little bit thicker, than like some of the, like I said, cotton fabric I have, but not too thick. And that's something I found online in the shop, and then I went in today to pick it up. So I'm going to make a blue bag, and I've decided, because the town bag has pockets on the outside and on the inside, I'm going to use this fabric as the pocket on the outside. So you'll have the blue bag, and this will be just on the outside as like a little bit of like a pop or something different. So I thought that was fun. So I have 1/2 meter of this, which is way more than I need, but it means I might be able to get out another smaller bag with the leftovers. And I've got 1 meter of this, which is, I think, what you need to make the whole bag. So I'll have some bits left over from this as well. And normally, I think I've mentioned this already, but normally I would, like, I have a bag here. So for example, this is one of the bags that I've made, and I use it a lot, and it has a lining inside, and then I put some relatively thick interfacing in between so that it has a little bit more structure and doesn't just like absolutely flop when it's not filled. So you can kind of even just see here, it does stand up like a little bit, and if it didn't have any sort of like filling, it would just flop even here. But the town bag doesn't have a lining because you're meant to use canvas that's really thick, and you're not going to line that because no one's going to be able to sew that. And so that's why I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get some fabric. And to be honest, it's not that expensive because I think this was 18 euro per meter. So not like the cheapest, but I only bought half. So it was like 9. And I think this is like 12 euro per meter. And like I said, I got 1 meter of that. So not too bad. And like I said, I'll have leftovers and I'll be able to make more than 1 bag. Probably not the same one, but some kind of bag. And then the other thing I bought was some more canvas, but this is thicker than the dark blue. So this one's a little bit thicker than your standard kind of like cotton that you can find most places. Then the dark blue is thicker than that, and this is even thicker. So it's this kind of like brown, green, khaki kind of color, and I really want to make the pegs by Merchant and Mills. It's one of their own patterns, and I have either already got the video out or will have it out soon of my trip to the UK, where I actually went to Rye, where the mill, well, not the mill, I don't know if the mill's there's the mill there, but the shop's there. That's what's important for me. And they had some like fabric scraps and bits and ends, and if there was like a fault with the fabric, you got it cheaper and things like that. And I found some of the sanded twill, I think it was the fabric that's suggested for the pegs. I'll have a picture of the trousers anyway, so you can see what I'm talking about. And I managed to get 2 sets of scraps of the same color of the fabric. There is a little bit of difference, but I'm pretty sure I can make it work so that I have enough for the entire like thing of trousers. But I'm precious about that fabric. So technically speaking, I think that fabric was less than what I paid for this. Maybe, I'd have to check, or around the same price. If I had actually bought the recommended like fabric fresh and straight from the like fabric, whatever you call it, and if I'd bought it without like it being an end or having flaws, it would have been more expensive than what I've bought. But I'm precious about that fabric from Merchant and Mills, and so I was like, okay, I'm going to get some cheaper canvas in a different sort of color and make a mock-up, so a toile, a muslin, whatever you want to call it, of that pattern at some point. This probably won't be until autumn unless I feel really inspired all of a sudden. And sew it up using this fabric, where I have 2.6 meters, and this was also like 12 euro per meter. So I think it ends up being like slightly over €30, something like that. And yeah, make that toile of it with this, so it's still wearable. And even if I expect that they're not going to fit the way that they should, because my body measurements are weird and I'm taller and all these things, but I'm hoping it will at least be wearable enough. And then, you know, think about some tweaks that I can make, and then hopefully in the future use the Merchant & Mills fabric to make a pair of those trousers and see if I get on with them and if I like them, because I am really picky with trousers, and I used to only be a jeans wearer because it was the only thing I kind of enjoyed wearing and felt comfortable in, but I don't always like the look of jeans. And so I decided, like, instead of trying to go into stores, try on all these trousers, especially when it's summer and it's annoying and it's awful, and finding your size and taking things on and off and just being like, I find mentally it's like one of the worst things to have to do. So I'm not going to do it. I'm going to use my skills to sew the trousers that I want and how I want them to fit and how I want them to look. That was a very long way of saying I bought 2.6 meters of canvas to make some trousers. But yeah, so the Towns bag, I feel inspired and tempted to make it now, because I don't have to pre-wash the fabric, because that bag's never going to go into the washing machine, and I have the pattern pieces cut out already. So I might do that. But maybe do a bit of the Marlowe sweater first. And once I start, I'll probably finish it anyway. And then I could treat myself with some of these. And we'll see whether I finish the Alton pullover today, because I've got D&D this evening. I'm running it, so I'm not going to be able to really knit or do anything, because there's too much I have to keep track of and write notes and things like that. And yeah, so we'll see how much more knitting I get done, because I would like to do some sewing, especially when it gets this hot. I prefer to do sewing because I can have the fan on and I can just kind of like focus, and I don't have like yarn and wool on me. And I tend to like get up and move a lot more with like having to press things or grab something else. And when I'm on the sofa knitting, I always want a blanket on me as comfort. But then I feel really uncomfortable because it's too hot. So, and I don't have that with sewing. So, yeah. So I'm going to do a little bit of sewing, and then I'll see what else I get up to today. So this is one of the fabrics I showed that I bought today. And just so you can see that this is the one, these are the outer pockets, or the outer pocket. Do you notice that it just fits? So I bought 1/2 meter of this, not even thinking about the fact that you obviously need to watch like the grain line of the fabric. I would have made do, but it's just a bag. But yeah, that wasn't intentional. That wasn't me being an absolute genius. That was purely accidental and luck. But yeah, so it means I have plenty more fabric to do like 3 more bags using just like this piece. But happy times. Sometimes things just work out, apparently. The sleeve is done, and that means the whole jumper's done. I just have to weave in all the ends. And even though there's stripes, it's not that bad, because you can just carry up the yarn. So I've got a couple of ends to weave in, got to block it, but the knitting is done. So that's finished. Yay! But I have D&D this evening, so I'm not sure how much knitting I'm going to get done during that, and I want something easy. So this would have been perfect, but I already finished it. So I'll have to see what I want to work on next, because the foxtail socks are going to be too complicated. I pulled the Maya cardigan out of hibernation, which totally makes sense considering it was like 33 degrees yesterday. It's going to be like 30 degrees again, but I was playing D&D last night and I wanted something easy, and I've done all the colour work and the increases. That was from way before. I'd done like a few rounds after the last increase, and now I just need to get to the required length. And all I did last night during D&D was finish the current skein of Léttlopi I was working with. So I did a little bit of that, and then the other thing is I did a little bit of work on my Sparky, so another project that's come out of hibernation. This is the last time I showed it in a podcast. This is not what I did yesterday, but you can see I'm on the next colour. So I've got one more colour that I want to include in this jumper after this one, and I think I only did like 2 or 3 rounds of this. I find 1x1 colour work quite easy to do even when playing, but it got a little bit intense, so that is all I really managed to do yesterday. I am also now on the toe shaping decreases for the first foxtail sock, singular, and I did a little bit on this yesterday, so I think I did like this 3 colour round and I started the fox. And then this morning, literally all of the crafting I've done, which hasn't been a lot, has just been finishing all of this and starting the toe. And yeah, like I said this morning. And other than that, I've been tidying up from cooking I did yesterday, making some focaccia for my lunch and things like that. So yeah, so that's been it for today. And hoping to finish this today, so I need to finish off that and then essentially do exactly the same thing again for the heel, and then these will be done. And then I just have to work on the Lucia sock, really. I'll give a quick update on where I'm at with all my goals, because today's Thursday, I've still got the rest of today, I've got tomorrow, and then that's the end of the week, and I'm doing pretty well with my goals. So we'll go over it again, just to also remind myself and be able to, see if I can still get everything done before the end of tomorrow. It is Thursday, which means I only have today and tomorrow to finish off the last few bits. It's once again in the afternoon. I recorded, I think, a couple of clips. 1 clip, 2 clips in the morning, and I think I only did 1 little recording yesterday because there was just a lot happening yesterday. But I had D&D last night, so I did work on some old projects, which surprised me that I was just craving them, even though it's incredibly hot. It was yesterday and it's incredibly hot today. It's going to be even hotter tomorrow. Anyway, but I thought I'd just quickly share where I'm up to. So in the clip yesterday, I did share, it's right here, that the knitting is done for the Elton pullover. So that's one thing off my list. If I'm being honest with myself, though, I do need to weave in the ends and block it sooner rather than later, but officially, it's done in my head for this because the knitting's done. So that was the first thing I wanted to try and achieve over this little week, and that worked. So one thing, ticked, done. Then the second one was to start the 3rd square for the From Grammar with Love blanket. I haven't done that yet. Might do it today. Then the 3rd thing was to finish the foxtail sock that I'd been working on. So only 1. This is the first sock. I haven't even started the second one, and I just wanted to finish this one. So as you can see, I've started the toe. Just need to finish that. Put in the heel, which I showed before, and that's most likely going to be finished today. At least the toe will be done. Maybe I'll leave the heel for tomorrow. Depends on how I'm feeling. Haven't touched the Lucia socks at all. I think I didn't even take them out of where the project bag currently is being stored. But like I said, I only have the leg of that sock to do because it's toe up. I should pull it out. If I pull it out, then I know I'm actually going to work on it today. Then the fifth thing was to sew the Marlowe sweater, which is a cardigan. I don't know. I don't get the whole sweater thing, but anyway. And I mentioned I'm doing a whole project vlog for this, so I don't think I'll be including a lot of like snippets of this one, but technically speaking, the like sewing of it is done. So it's an oversized, slightly cropped cardigan done in like a stretchy sweatshirting sort of material, but quite thin, so could be for spring, autumn, but also like cold summer evenings. And yeah, all the sewing is done. It's so hard to share. Once it's done, I'll try and include me like wearing it so you can see it better. But you might be able to see here, I've drawn on where the buttonholes are going to go. But officially I need 30mm buttons for this cardigan, and 3 of them. And I thought I had some in stash. I do not. And I was going to buy some, and then I was like, how frustrating to, you know, now have to buy buttons for this when I have so many buttons, have to wait for them to arrive, and I can't finish this. And then I thought, well, yes, that's the recommended size, but I've got some wooden 28mm buttons, which I thought would look really nice. They're just a little bit smaller than what they're meant to be, but I think 2mm, I'm not going to be able to tell. And because I have a button, a whole like maker attachment for my sewing machine, but even if I didn't, I can control the size of the buttonhole with the button. So the only thing I might change, because I made the whole body longer, is I might, instead of using 3 buttons, I might use 4. So I have to play around with that. And then I have to try and do the buttonholes, which is normally fine, but with like any sort of stretch knit fabric, I'm always a bit worried about how it's going to go. But so that one's almost done. I just need to do the buttons, and then officially I'm also meant to top stitch around the like button band so that the seam allowance here sits like flush. Top stitching stretch fabrics. Oh, it's not fun. I do have a walking foot, which would help, but I'm just not sure if I want to be bothered, because I might end up regretting it. And I might just see like how bad is it with how the button band sits, and maybe I can just tack it down by hand, which is a lot more effort, but I might be happier with how it looks. So it's kind of finishing touches, because officially I can already put it on and wear it, even though it's way too hot. But yeah, so I'm happy with that progress. It will be done very soon once I make some final decisions. Number 6 is to spin up 1 skein of yarn for a traveler shawl that I want to make with my hand spun. I have all my singles. Okay. So this is my lazy Kate that came with my wheel. I've got 3 singles on here. I haven't completely like filled these bobbins because I'm doing a 3-ply, and sometimes I just need a bit of a break from just doing the singles, and so I just stop kind of when I feel like it, and then when I spin up my 3-ply yarn, whenever one of them runs out, that's just when my skein is done. And I'm absolutely okay and happy with that. I don't mind having more skeins than I should. It's fine. So I might spin that up today, because then it can rest and I can measure the yardage tomorrow, give it a wash, weigh it, all those good things, and figure out the wraps per inch and whatnot. So close to being done with that one. And then number 7. Number 7 was literally just to hem an apron that I'd made last month for my mum. I haven't done it. Oh, but maybe that's something I can do today. it's, the thing is, like, for the most part, I'm at the point where a lot of these are kind of at the, like, last finishing touches. And that's what I struggle with the most when it comes to finishing a project. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah, so like I said, I've got the rest of today, I've got tomorrow, and we'll see how much I get done. I do not care if this isn't done. It's just I know I'm going to kick myself. Like, maybe not next week, maybe not the week after, but very soon, when all of these things pile up and I just have these little finicky bits to do. So I might as well do them now. But I might start with some spinning. Spin up my singles into my 3-ply. That shouldn't take me too long. And then afterwards, maybe sew the hem of the apron, finish that. So it's kind of like spinning up the 3-ply, technically speaking, means I'm done, because the like measuring it and washing the skein of yarn is something I don't need to do now because I want to finish spinning everything first. So technically speaking, like with my Elton, that would be done. And then it would be sort of at the same stage as the Marlowe sweater as well. It's technically speaking done. And yeah, and then I can literally actually go and finish the apron. And then this evening I can just work on the socks because colour work's out of the way. And yeah, maybe I'll just commit to taking the Lucia socks out from their little hibernation hole. And yeah, getting everything ready so I can work on it maybe tomorrow. Otherwise, maybe I'll feel like it this evening, but we'll see what happens. And then the only other thing I quickly wanted to mention was the fact that, so it's a bit chaotic with me jumping all over the place with this, but so I didn't really film yesterday because I was just busy. And the little bit of like making that I did every now and then, it was such quick, short bursts of it that I couldn't really film it. So I did start sewing the town bag where I kind of showed the fabric and everything. I did start sewing that yesterday and didn't film any of it because it was already late in the evening when I was doing that. And to be honest, I also just wanted to use the time to make it, but I didn't get far. So we'll see whether I do more of that today. But whenever I do, I'll film little clips and show it eventually. But that's kind of like an extra thing I've been working on. And the other two projects that I talked about earlier today that I worked on yesterday during D&D, it's also kind of like a spontaneous extra thing, which I knew was going to happen. There was no way I was just going to stick to what's on my list. It's just not very me. But yeah, I'm going to spin up the 3-ply, and then we'll see where the rest of the day takes me, because it's almost 5 o'clock. We ain't got much of a day left, but it is hot. So spinning will be good. But yeah, I'm going to do that now. So I came into what I've been calling my craft room, though it shouldn't really be my craft room, it's just what I'm using as my craft room. It doesn't matter. But I came in here to print off the 2 charts that I need for the Lucia sock so I can finally commit to finishing that first sock. And as I had to like put in a new ink cartridge and everything, and as I did, and that took time, I then got distracted and started doing some prep for some sewing projects. So the 2 charts are printed. I'm probably not going to do too much more sewing because it's already kind of getting late and I'm almost ready for bed. But I thought I'd quickly show you what I've been doing. So one of them I already talked about, but now I'll actually show you. So this is the town bag that I mentioned that I'd started. So like I said, I didn't do much. So I've done the drawstring casing at the top. I've attached the straps, but on the other side, because it's a weird pattern how it works, got the drawstring, but I haven't actually stitched on the strap for the second half. I just couldn't be bothered yesterday. I'm pretty sure I did this yesterday. Yeah, on Wednesday. And yeah, like I said, couldn't really be bothered. So I'll get onto that at some point. And then something I started earlier this week, which I think I've mentioned. I can't remember now. I'm using a variety of different like fabrics in my stash to sew myself a little project bag. So I am using a paid for pattern, which I normally wouldn't do, but I thought I'd give it a go because I had very specific things I wanted. Maybe I have talked about it. And this way I could kind of get everything I wanted, and then I can make some tweaks to that pattern if there's anything else I want. So I've cut out all the pieces that I need. This is going to be the top outer fabric. This is going to be the base fabric that I'm using, just covered in threads. This is the drawstring casing, and this is the lining. So it's all color-wise a bit odd, but I think it sort of works together. We'll see when it's done and when I start stitching it together. And what I was doing while the pattern was printing was cutting out the interfacing that I need for the outside fabric, which are these two. And I'll probably press those now. And I'm not sure if I'll do any more of that because I should, and I do kind of want to now that the charts are printed. I'd like to actually work on those socks. So I'll probably do that now. I said I was just gonna start working on the Lucia socks and I didn't. I started working on the project bag that I mentioned. So I've got the outer piece sewed together, strap attached, so it's got like a strap on the side. The lining piece with pockets is done, and I'm just starting on the drawstring channel, but I think that's where I'm going to leave it. I'm tired. I shouldn't have done this in the first place, but I sort of like hyper focused and was like, I'm sitting here, like this will be fun. So but doesn't matter. I've achieved something, I've done something, and who knows, maybe I'll finish this bag off tomorrow. But yeah, so that's Thursday. Let's see what I can get done for the last day of the week tomorrow. Sat down to give an update and ended up completely ripping my needles out of my Lucia socks. So that was a great start to that. Welcome to Friday. Yeah, I just thought I'd share the little bit I still got up to last night because I went to bed late. I don't know, I just really wanted to just get going on some of these things. So first of all, you can probably tell it's hot because if you've watched my podcast, you know that this t-shirt, the Fibre top, knit out of Tynn linen by Sandnes Garn, only comes out when it's incredibly hot. So it's gotten even hotter this week. Yay. But it should, I say cool down, which is accurate, but it's not going to actually be cool. It's just going to be colder than it is now in the coming week. Anyway, so I started working on the Lucia sock last night. I only did like 2 rows before going to bed. And then this morning I've done a little bit more. And this marker is where I was before I started working on them again. So I think I've been at this stage since like November or something like that, maybe even October. So I've done a decent amount, though of course, like I said, I ripped my stitches out and did the best I could to pick them up, but I had a couple of yarn overs where it like pearled them and things like that, and that's unraveled. So next time I go to knit another round of these, I need to just check that I should have the right number of stitches because I was counting as I was going, but I just need to double check that round. But progress is being made. Looks like it's about maybe an inch, maybe slightly more than an inch. I think I'm meant to do 5 inches before I do the final ribbing for the sock. I'm going to see if I'm going to make them that long, because I'm almost at the end of the charts. So you have one chart for the front, one chart for the back. And once I finish that one, I'm going to see if I can get another full repeat out. And whichever one is shorter. So if 5 inches is shorter than another full repeat of the chart, then I'll stop at 5 inches. If the repeat of the chart is less than 5 inches, then I'll do that. So it'll either be 5 inches or it will be the repeat of the chart. And then I can start the ribbing, and then this will finally be done. But that's only sock 1. Sock 2, I think I've only finished the increases for the toe, but like I said, that's not for this video, that's for a future video. And then the sewing I did yesterday, where I did like a little bit of filming, is a project bag that I'm currently working on, where I still have pins in it. That could have hurt. There we go. I was wondering why that wasn't opening. It is covered in little bits of fibre from all the fabric that's been near it, but it's not done yet. But this is what it's looking like currently. So this is the outside. I've had this check fabric since I lived in New Zealand. I can't remember, was it like 2011 or something? It was like a vintage sort of antique almost fibre sale that they were having. So there were some really old fabrics and for very little money, and this was one of the things I picked up, and I've just never done anything with it. I have no idea what it is. I think I would have had enough to make a top, but I don't know, it could be cotton, but it has a little bit of like a plasticky feel, and I was like, let's just make a project bag. I think it looks cool. And the base is a completely different fabric. This is a scrap I have from Self-Made that I bought like a bundle of like a pack of scraps. It's like corduroy fabric. It's way thicker, but I was like, I don't care, it's a bag. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. So I feel like that's looking really cute. I've got the handle. I've also done the lining, which was not fun to do, and is not perfect and does not match up the way it's meant to. So it was actually not even the lining fabric that was the problem. It was this fabric here that just was really slippy and kept moving around. And I just did the best I could, and I was like, it doesn't matter, it's just a bag for me, it doesn't have to be perfect. And next time I would use a much thinner fabric for the pocket. But it's got, I'll turn it right side out. It's got one section with 2 bigger pockets, and then this section here has 1 very big pocket and 2 small pockets. And yeah, and then a square base, well, rectangular base. And the last thing I did before going to bed yesterday is I pinned the drawstring casing. So I've got 2 of them. They're pinned, they just need to be pressed, and then I can sew those and finish that up, and then I think I'm only left with piecing it all together. So the only thing I had done yesterday, just found a thread I haven't cut, that I had done yesterday when I picked this project up was I had cut out my pattern pieces. Hadn't even done the interfacing. That's how I started. I was like, let me print the charts for the Lucia socks, and while I was waiting for the printer to kind of, start up and do its thing and start printing, I was like, oh, I'll cut out the interfacing for this bag, that will be great. And one thing led to another, and now I've got a project bag that's almost done. That wasn't even on the list. So I do find that when it comes to any sort of like crafting and making, I do it throughout the day when I can, but it's definitely evening time, especially like the sunset. And, you know, I've had my dinner and I'm thinking about like, oh, I'm getting tired. I might go to bed soon. That's when inspiration strikes. And all my brain wants to do is do whatever I've just thought of. That's also when I typically think of new cast-ons and will, you know, gather yarn for that, maybe do some swatching or cake up the yarn just before I'm meant to go to bed. So, not the best thing, wouldn't recommend that, but I at least enjoy the fact that my brain has moments where it's very creative. So yeah, I'm mainly going to be working on the Lucia socks today. It also kind of works out with the fact it's meant to be really hot today. I'm not going to want to work on anything much bigger. So we'll see how much I get done today, because like I said, it's the last day of the week. And then tomorrow morning, so Saturday morning, I'll do a little like recap again of what I got done, show that off, and then kind of see like, was there anything different about this week? Did I, you know, achieve what I want? Not just did I achieve what I wanted to do, but what did I kind of learn from the whole process? Because it's been interesting to kind of learn how much I struggle to film the like little snippets that I do throughout the day. And so I find it ends up looking like I didn't really do anything, and then like one day all of a sudden I'm like, I did all the crafting and making, and that's not really how it's been. It's just how the filming kind of makes it look. But anyway, I don't actually know what I'm gonna do now other than keep collecting fluff. But yeah, probably just keep working on the socks, though I am tempted to work on the project bag, because seeing this like right side out, I didn't have it right side out yesterday, and it was dark, so I couldn't really see much. I'm like, I really love how this works together. Yeah, so we'll see. So this is the project bag I was working on, and it is done. Yes, I went for black and gold drawstrings. That's just because, just like this fabric, which is years old, this, I think, I maybe even bought before I bought this fabric. I think I got it at a second-hand shop in New Zealand, and I've just had it, never used it. I was like, you know what? Like, does it really go? No, but it was either that, so many threads. It was either that or white, and I was like, let's just go for the funky blingness. And now, the last thing that I'm going to still do in here sewing-wise, hopefully my screen will be okay. Sometimes when you film it, it goes weird. This is the apron that I mentioned that I made, or have been making, for my mum. So this is the crossback apron, free pattern, by Pearl Soho. This is it. The absolute mess it is right now. And I just need to hem it. So I'm just going to do that. I just have to fold it over, 1/4 inch, press, and then a whole inch, and then seam it. So it shouldn't take too long. And I've got blue thread already on my machine from making this bag. So easy peasy. We'll do that now. So that's the end of the week. So I'm just sitting down for a little final like recap. And we'll start with the spinning, because there's only one thing I was working on. And that's, I've got it hanging up here because I gave it a wash, and now it's still like a little bit damp. It hasn't been drying for that long, but because it's quite hot, it's been drying quite quickly. But I did manage to spin up the 3 singles I wanted to make for the yarn that I'm spinning for the Traveller Shawl by Schachenmayr, and plied it all up. And I still have to, once it's dry, I'm going to weigh it, measure the wraps per inch, just to see if it's kind of the same as all the other ones. If it's not, it doesn't matter. But I've got another example here. So this is one I did before I started filming, like this week. and it's for the same project. I've got 54 grams here, and it's about 123 meters, and it's got about 10 wraps per inch, and so it's about like a worsted weight, which is what most of my other skeins have been. I think some of them had portions that were a bit more like DK leaning, but I think this will be the same. My singles have been relatively consistent in the sense that each strand isn't exactly the same width the whole way through, but I've been relatively consistent with going thick and thin. So I'm happy with that. Managed to do that. Just need to wait for that to dry, and then I can finish up those last few bits. Sewing. I mentioned that I want to get my mum's apron done, which I did. So this one's quite hard to show. If I can, I'll try and include a clip, but it kind of depends how... This is part of the reason why I never really include clips of me wearing stuff, because it's really hard to find a place to film and to figure out how to film myself. So it's a lot of effort, and most of the time it just doesn't work out. But the apron is done, so it's one of those like crossover around the back. And then it's got pockets as well, and it's decent length, has a lot of, essentially every seam is a French seam when it can be, and because this is quite thick linen from IKEA, there were times where it wasn't so easy to sew all those layers, but it worked. And it's not perfect, my sewing never is, just like my knitting never is, but it will be usable, and that's what's important. And yeah, so next time my mum's in Austria, she can use it, and maybe I'll cheekily use it. But to be honest, for summer, even though it's linen, I think it's like a little bit of too heavy linen to just wear comfortably. And then the other sewing project that I wanted to do was to sew up the entire Marlowe sweater, which is a cardigan. And I did do that. It hasn't changed since I last showed it, so you can't see much, but it's a very oversized but slightly cropped little cardigan, and I haven't done the buttonholes yet or sewed the buttons on, because I've been still trying to figure out what I should do with button placement, how many, which ones, because the size I'm meant to use and for which I've drawn on the buttonhole placements, I don't have buttons that size, but I do have some that are slightly smaller, but because they're slightly smaller and I've added extra length to this, I think I'll need 4 instead of 3 buttons. So I don't want to make a rash decision, because once I make buttonholes, that's it. I'd have to take off the entire button band and do it again if I want to make changes. So just leaving it for now. And the other thing I haven't done, which I'm still not sure if I want to do, is around the button band you're meant to stitch down the seam allowance, which is fine for the most part, because the actual length here where the buttons are, you have the right amount of fabric, so you don't stretch this, but you do up here, and so I'm just a bit worried that if I top stitch it, it will look a little bit weird. But I'm in no rush with this. Like, it's something for cooler evenings and when it just gets colder, hopefully at some point, and then I can kind of see when I wear it, does it bother me, and then I can always go and do it later. But technically speaking, I think that's done. Then I did do 2 sneaky extra sewing projects, because I was just really, once I sit in front of my machine and once I have fabric cut out, I love sewing. But like cutting out the pattern and even the fabric is a bit frustrating. So the first thing I made was this little project bag. These ties, like the drawstring, was not planned. It's just I've had it in my stash for so long, and I was like, gonna use them. Better now than never. Like, I've had them for like almost 10 years. Yeah, probably almost 10 years. And the fabric This fabric I've mentioned before is an old one from a sort of like sale that I bought, like a vintage fabric sale in New Zealand. So I've had this for almost 10 years. That's a remnant that I got from Self-Made. I think so is this. I've had this strap for ages and I'm pretty happy with it. The only thing, once again, which I've mentioned as well, is the pocket fabric I chose was idiotic. I should have thought about it. It's way too thick, and so it just isn't the best for pocket fabric, but it's done, it's in there, it's fine. And I've already got yarn in here. So this is 100% cotton, about a fingering weight, because I want to make a little striped tank top. So I normally don't wear tank tops, but I think I need them because the few that I have knitted myself, I wear a lot in the house, and I think it'd be nice to have another one, and a stripy one would be extra nice. Love stripes. And then I also ended up making this, which is the Town bag by Grainline Studios, I want to say. So I specifically bought the fabric for this because I didn't really have anything, and to be honest, it should have been even thicker canvas, but my sewing machine can barely handle this. I was like, it's not going to be able to handle anything thicker. And I've got my Sparky in here because it needs a relatively big bag. So yeah, you've got drawstrings, you've got one big pocket on one side, two smaller pockets on the other side, and then pockets on the inside where one's quite big and open, and then you've got one with 3 small pockets and then like a half-size pocket. And it's nice because it's not a super heavy project bag, but fits a lot. So quite happy with that. And yeah, I might make another one, but I've been thinking about whether I should do a whole video on this. This bag in some ways is very similar to a different pattern that I have, which is from Self-Made. And I think I prefer the Self-Made one, which was also cheaper and way more fun to make. But yeah, we'll see. I might make a video about it. I may not. No, just see what happens. But yeah, so those were 2 spontaneous sewing projects that I did. Back to the actual list of things. I had that I wanted to finish the Elton pullover, and I already showed. It's done. Still needs the ends woven in and blocked, but I'll get to it. That's the good thing with how hot it is. It's gonna dry really quickly, but I'm in no rush to get that completely finished off in that way because I'm hoping to be in the UK in October for a friend's wedding, and we'll just see whether I might be able to see Jess and give it to her. Otherwise it will be a send it to her from the UK, because it's not like she can wear it now anyway, because it's also incredibly hot in the UK right now, and it's more of an autumn piece anyway. So that's done. Then I wanted to start my 3rd square of the From Grandma with a Love blanket that I've had on the go for a long time. I've got 2 squares done, and to try and make sure that I'm actually going to keep working on this blanket, I just wanted to start the next square. So I don't have much. It's done from the middle out. So you just work increases in the round, and then eventually you do a lace border. So it looks like this. And so yeah, I haven't gotten very far because I wasn't in the mood to knit this, but I've got it started, which means whenever I want something quite easy, this is perfect because I have to do increases until I have a certain number of stitches before I can start the lace chart. And then the lace chart isn't exactly hard, it's just you do 1 repeat and then everything shifts, and that second repeat I always mess up the first row because I can't read apparently. So technically did that, just didn't work on it as much as and got as much done as I actually wanted to. But hey, better than nothing. Number 3 on my list, though I've set them out of order. Doesn't matter. But anyway, number 3 on my list was finish the foxtail sock that I had on the go. And I've done that. Not that I've woven in the ends or blocked it. And I think, okay, it doesn't really need blocking because with this yarn, it kind of smooths itself out. But I do think, especially the heel, it will just look nicer. So I've made these before. I'm just using the leftovers to make a pair for myself, because the first pair was a sample piece for Georgie. It's her yarn. And yeah, I've had this for ages and I just haven't done them. And now I've got at least one done. And we'll start the other one soon, because I'd like to get them done sooner rather than later, because I've wanted to have my own pair for so long, and they'd be really nice to have for autumn. So the second sock, all the colours will kind of be switched. So this will be the brown colour instead. Here the brown and the kind of mapley colour will be switched, and the only thing that stays the same is the foxes, because they'd look weird otherwise. And yeah, so I've got quite big feet, so I had to do so many more repeat. Okay, not so many more. I had to do like an extra repeat compared to what I did for Georgie's sock. But it's fine. And I did the afterthought heel, which is in the pattern. But I've discovered if I do an afterthought heel, to make it fit, I need a couple of extra rounds before I start the decreases. So that's what I did here. I think I did 4 or 5 rounds before decreasing. I hope I've written it somewhere. Otherwise, 4. I've done 4. I counted. And I think it's only meant to be like 2 or something. And just those few extra rounds make a huge difference with how the heel fits my foot. Because I just need a little bit more kind of like distance across this part here. It's too tight, so that's why I can't really wear a short row heel. Because they're just too tight across, like, is it my instep, my arches? I have no idea. But I just know heel flap and gusset fits well, and afterthought heel or peasant heel or forethought heel, whatever you want to call those kind of types of heels, they fit really well if I do those extra rows. And then this one I didn't complete, but I'm still incredibly happy that I made as much progress as I did, because if I hadn't set this goal and recorded this video, I don't think I would have picked these up, because I'm still not really enjoying it. I have moments where I have a couple of rounds that I enjoy, but I'm just not in the mood for this. So I'm talking about the Lucia socks, which were a mystery knit along 2 years ago now? 2022? December 2022? I think so, yeah. And this is the first sock, which I wanted to finish. So this is where I was up to before I started filming. And I know it's not a lot, but you know, it's almost like 2 inches. I don't think it is 2 inches yet, but we're getting there. And officially this needs to be 5 inches, and then I can start the ribbing at the top of the sock. And I'm back at the beginning of the charts that I need to use. 1 chart for the front, 1 chart for the back. So having 2 charts up in front of me is just a lot of effort when I want to knit on this. But I've at least worked on it, and now I know I'm going to try and do 1 more chart repeat. If I get to 5 inches before that, I'm going to stop. But if at the end of another chart repeat I'm not at the recommended length, I'm just going to stop there as well. Because to be honest, I'd like to stop at the end of the chart repeat, but I'm going to be kind to myself, and if I get to the required length before I finish the chart repeat, I'm just going to stop. I could measure it, like based on what I've already done, but I want it to be a surprise. Because otherwise I feel like once I know how long I have to make it, it's going to be much harder to motivate myself to actually do it. So yeah, that was the update on all of the goals. And like I said, I did 2 extra sewing projects. I then also spent a little bit of time working on the Sparky, which is why it's in that project bag. That was during D&D. I only did like 3-4 rounds, but something. And the other thing was for the Maya cardigan, I finished off the skein I had going for the first sleeve. So I think you can probably kind of see how my kind of like making and crafting goes. I'm very much someone who jumps between a lot of different projects, whatever I'm currently in the mood for. I'm the same with reading books as well. And I always tend to have kind of like one main project. So in this case, it was the Alton pullover that I really wanted to get done. And I've already got another project where I'm like, this is my main focus project, but I then surround myself with a couple of other projects that I kind of will dip in and out of. And then, even when I haven't got it planned, other projects that just end up kind of, you know, joining in. And that's just how it happens for me and makes me happy and works for me. And yeah. So, I hope this was enjoyable. And, you know, I might do it again because I did enjoy kind of just sharing all these little bits instead of having to like sit down and film like entire video in one go. So it'll be interesting to hear if this was interesting at all. I didn't really include anything outside of my making, other than like mentioning and passing other things I did. So if you did enjoy the video, it'd be really helpful if you either, you know, let me know by leaving a comment or just give the video a thumbs up. That's the quickest and easiest way for me to see that a video has been... I always view it as if I give a video a thumbs up, it's because I've extra enjoyed it. Like there's been something where I've really gone like, I've appreciated the effort put in, I like it, I'm going to give it a thumbs up. And don't know if it's the same for you, but if it is, always appreciated if that happens. And I'll see you hopefully soon in another podcast video. I have to film. I so desperately need to film a podcast episode, but I still have old ones that I need to get out, and I'm kind of sneaking this one in before some of that other stuff is even out, so it's all going to be a bit of a mess, but I'm just kind of trying to embrace filming what I want to film and releasing what I want to release instead of putting pressure on myself and kind of having this idea of what my channel should look like, and instead just embracing this is what it is like. So that is it. Enough rambling, and I'll see you soon. Bye.